Hey everyone. So I'm gonna give people a couple minutes to join us. So I hope you're having a wonderful day so far. And I'm curious where you're watching from. So um, type that in the chat or comment below. I'll give people one more minute. Okay, I'll give people one more minute. Gonna grab my glasses. Oh, my hair. Okay. So I don't know about you, but was just minding my own business yesterday when I heard about like this $5,000 dividend check. I don't know exactly what um, what that entails, but I had heard about it from someone like late last night, and so today I just did some research on these checks. So, yeah, like if you have been, look, I don't listen to the news every single day, but lately since this new administration, um, well, kind of new, but since they got into office, DOGE has been in the headlines like every time I check, right? And so, yeah, I was wondering, have you guys heard about the DOGE dividends? Hi, V Smart. Oh, so you have. Yeah, I heard about again, like I heard about that yesterday. So I was like looking up, different videos on that. And so, I mean, listen, I was wondering, do you think that DOGE is doing, um, do you think that what they're doing right now is what we need? Um, what our government needs, or no? I'm very curious about what you guys think about that. Be smart. Are you saying yes to Doge? Do you think they're doing like a good job? Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, I was looking at the website earlier, right? And I don't know what exactly to think yet because, you know, clearly, like it's like I'm able to distinguish when things seem good on paper and how they may apply in real life. And this is just one of those things where I was like, okay, well, for years I have been wondering, well, hey, um, when someone's paying taxes or, they're voting a certain way, I think it's very it seems like a great idea to be very transparent as to what, you know, voters are voting for, where that money is going. And I also understand that there are certain things like social credit scores and how certain parts of the world, or at least, how do I want to say this? There seems to be some degree or symptoms of surveillance. And, I was wondering where the line is because there seems to be, with all of the technological developments and with, all of the people teaming up in this administration, it seems like, things are going very efficiently, in my opinion. Um, but I'm wondering, like, at what point does that draw the line? You know what I'm saying? Hey, Gabrielle. How are you today? Yeah, I was just talking about just asking people about this new administration and how what you guys think about DOGE, basically. Yeah, so VSmart asked, I think you're talking about Elon Musk. I think he was a co-founder of PayPal. I think he still is. Um, I could be wrong, but the last time I checked, he was a co-founder of PayPal. Uh, so Gabrielle asked, how about my day? Well, I spent it researching. And of course, praying about, this topic because this, yeah, you need grace and favor to be discussing something like this. Oh, V Smart says first after prayer I look at who is opposing. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I don't know if this is true. Like, I was watching Valuetainment and they mentioned something about how um, the what was it? Someone like who was working with Social Security, I think they stepped down like in the midst of this. My neighbors, ignore them. Ignore the noise, I mean. V Smart says so he has access. Maybe people who have things to hide. I had read a headline about how there seemed to be some controversy as to whether, now, again, I'm not stating this to be a fact. I don't know exactly, right? But it seems like there was this idea that, um, people were wondering if he was going to have, Elon Musk was going to have some access to the IRS. Now, I don't know much about what type of access, what that entails. Um, yeah, and then again, like I was watching Valuetainment, and I think, let me go over my notes here. Oh, V Smart says, did you hear about the 20B? Can you tell us what that is, V Smart? Yeah, I'll just go over my notes just to make sure because I don't want to say anything and, I'm not here to give false news. Hmm. Oh, so yeah, I was watching this video by Forbes, and I'll add the links later after this live stream, but they were talking about the DOGE dividend checks and how there's a possibility of shutting down the IRS. Now, I'm just, saying what I heard. um, yeah, we're living in interesting times. Hi, Tamia. Huh. Civi Smart says the 20 billion. You meant because, okay, so V Smart, do you mean 20 billion to her NP? Wow. So, I mean, oh, V Smart says EPs set aside 20 billion so that it could not be clawed back. Hmm. Climate control, nonprofits. Yeah, that's what Valuetainment mentioned in their video too. Like, in that video I watched with Patrick at David, I think the video was discussing how like NGOs are popular, at least have grown in popularity, if I recall correctly, within the past 30 or so years. And so I was writing down like where the majority of the budget goes to, like according to the graph he was showing on his video. It said that like for health it was 24%, social security 21%, defense 13%, interest on debt 13%. Gabrielle says the IRS discussion is interesting. To my understanding, their very existence is unconstitutional. This would be great for business owners, but I know a lot of people with children look forward to those refund checks. Look, I'm not gonna name names. um, because they might be watching this channel. But, I have thought about it. You these refund checks, reminds me of the stimulus checks, like, I mean, I took mine, but when I think about it now, um, it's so interesting, like all the things that go on behind, a check. Um, my personal thought, like going back to the stimulus check, um, like like right now, a lot of the things DOGE is basically seemingly cleaning up includes like, I think I think it would include the unemployment benefits, right? And so I remember that time, like I was just thinking, sure, like a lot of people are going through a really rough time, but I just wondered, like, and this was before I was financially literate, like I was wondering how is the economy going to sustain itself? Um, like I didn't know much about how much we were spending. I didn't know much about the revenue. But I already had an inkling. Thank you, Holy Spirit, um, that something about that didn't add up. And so now that they're talking about these um, Doge dividend checks, I think basically the idea is, and I'm just thinking that the idea is the more they save, the more um, they dig up. It seems like, so from what I listened about Valuetainment and Forbes, um, it sounds like the more they dig up, um, that that money supposedly will go to back into Americans' pockets. And I was wondering, what do you guys think about that? Like the the things this administration says that it's going to do with, the tariffs on imports, and then we have the Gulf of America conversation, and you know, I think drilling up oil, like it just sounds like it's aimed at, and it's probably really obvious at this point, but it sounds like it's really aimed at creating a production manufacturing nation again. And so let's just say theoretically everything lines up, right, with that. And, people get more in their pockets based off of what Doge, for example, is able to dig up. Then I can see how that would be a drastic improvement to the quality of our lives. Um, but yeah, like, I do have one question though, like, how much faith are people putting into a check? Because I understand money is not the same as it was, several years ago. Like, I go to a grocery store and it's like things look like it's three times, four times how much it should cost. Maybe that's an exaggeration, but I feel like the prices are exaggerated. And yeah, like when people put faith in a check like that, there's a certain amount of control um, behind who is providing that check, if you know what I mean. But then ultimately, it boils down to, you know, the whole purpose and intention behind the checks, you know? I feel like, I'm here to talk about finance, but I feel like I keep digging deeper into politics. And then V Smart says, messed up how people have been getting rich. Yes, create ANP, then get funding from the government. I mean, from what I have observed, um, I do agree that, like, okay, so there's, like we discussed in that video, how do the rich keep getting richer? It's really just your belief and your perspective of the world. I do think that the way you think does frame certain um, ways things might come up. So if you're able to, I'm just going to use this example because, we're all about Jesus and faith here. So as long as you put your faith in God, um, then you don't have to think with a lack mentality. And using that example, wherever you go, whatever you decide to do, um, it has that covering, you know? Whereas if someone goes into things with a lack mentality, um, it's just gonna have, it's gonna be evident, you know? And that reminds me of that scripture about, um, having the fruits of the Spirit being evident in our lives, right? So, like, yeah, I was thinking it's because the the wealthy people know, like, they know more than probably the average person knows about, what loopholes there are, um, or what kind of structure to build, whether it's a business, a nonprofit, um, some sort of entity, right? It's just that they know more, you know? It's really not like, it's not always about hitting jackpot all the time, you know? Yes, refund checks. What are those? I think in this context, I was just talking about the DOGE dividend checks where, they were saying, or at least from my understanding, every time DOGE digs up something that, where the money shouldn't have been, then it goes into Americans' pockets. And again, like I was watching Valuetainment, like it seems like to be an incentive for people to report things that, that they know are clearly not right. And Gabrielle says, right, Be Smart Pharmacy, I am definitely a proponent of helping those who cannot temporarily help themselves. But why incentivize people for having children and not having their own? Hmm. And I'm just going to say this from observation and just having experienced it. I do think um, just what Gabrielle and V Smart were saying about, um, I'm guessing certain programs or extensions that are meant to help people. I think sometimes although there are people who mean well by it, it really depends on the person receiving it. If they're in the right um, frame of mind to want to actually improve their lives, whereas, you know, as opposed to just expecting a handout. And then Gabrielle says, some people were wise with their stimulus checks and started business, but many just spent it on consumer goods. Yeah. When I started like learning about financial literacy, that's what I spent my money on. Like I was like, okay, we're not really going outside. So I'm just gonna, I don't know much about business, but I mean, you guys, for those of you who know me, I had what I call a near death experience several years ago. So that just, propelled that even more, like wanting to, having that desire to start something knowing that tomorrow is not guaranteed. And so that's why I was like, okay, well, I'm just gonna, at first I wasn't business minded. So I thought, okay, maybe this will be time to, sit down and maybe learn a new skill. But what I really desired was to learn more about business. And so that's why I spent my money on learning about a bit about, basics about real estate, learning basics about, um, investing, stock markets, because I knew that, and I'm glad I went that direction because it just really helped me reframe, reshape the way I saw the world. Um, yeah, it's something. So if someone out there watching wants to start a business, um, it's there are certain, I guess, characteristics or qualities, gifts, aptitudes, whatever you want to call it. I think each one of us has. Um, but I do think it takes a certain, like a drive. You have to have a really strong reason. Like, and this is something I learned in business, like in another business, like just you have to have a very strong reason for what you eventually decide to do. And to add to that, like I used to watch Phil Robertson's channel a lot more and his brother Cy Robertson. And I think Cy mentioned something, if you don't stand for something, you're not going to stand for anything at all, which is why I encourage, people to have faith in God. Because if you pay close attention, the most successful people have placed their faith in something. But God is the one who gives us wealth without sorrow. And wealth can mean different things, at least in my opinion. It can mean monetarily. Either way, He's always going to provide, as long as you put Him first. But the thing is, it can also mean in your relationships, it can mean enrichment in every aspect of your life. And that is true wealth. And Gabrielle says, I think the DOGE checks should be given under conditions. More so, if people are going to receive these benefits, then they need to be using it toward paying off debt, starting businesses, more so. I think to add to that, I do see your point too. I also understand that out there in the world, a lot of people like there's a lot of impulse purchases. A lot of our culture, like I'm not gonna say our culture. It's not my culture anymore because I'm not of the world anymore, right? But I think, looking back at the time I was in the world, I think um, a lot of pop culture is based off of impulse spending, whether that's impulse spending to go to a concert, to buy merch. You see a new ad on TV, you see a new ad just about anywhere, and these big companies know what they're doing. They know where they're spending their money. So, I can see why if someone doesn't have if someone hasn't practiced the discipline, the restraint, then I can see how that can be very difficult, especially if they haven't had an example of that. And I don't know if my neighbors are playing in the band or something. I don't know, hear the trumpets outside. Okay, and then V Smart says, thing is, we didn't qualify for a lot of things that we have paid taxes for. Stimulus check, I don't think we got one. We had a business and it was tough. Not complaining because God has helped me to depend on Him. That's what I love about your testimony, Be Smart, and that's what this channel is about. Like, just showing people that you can be successful God's way and not have to depend on a check or, depend on the stability that the world promises you because, like, I don't know about you, but like, when 2020 was going on and I was watching the news a lot back then, it was probably very unhealthy. You know what? It is unhealthy how much I was watching, but I just saw stories about people that worked, in the medical field, right? Maybe 15, over a dozen years, maximum 20 years, and they were let go like that. And that's what I saw. I was like, okay, so that just means that someone, you know, basically they were living the life that society paints as, making it, but that doesn't guarantee that, they're financially literate, or that doesn't guarantee that they're going to keep their job because ultimately that person was working for someone else, you know? And to me, like, I think I see a risk to that, and I'm not saying that working for someone is a bad thing, and I'm not discouraging it. It's just I'm saying from an entrepreneurial perspective, um, yeah, like I learned from my mentor, like me personally, like I think it depends on the person too. So if they want that, and that's, God puts people in different positions in various seasons of their life. So if that's what they are meant to do in that season in their life, it's not my place to judge. This is not coming from a perspective of judgment. I'm just saying I don't see how that's for me because to me, I think it's worth more to invest in a new skill, learn about business, you know, at least have some structure or maybe get a grasp of how to do business so you can take that anywhere you go as opposed to working in one company or one location, if that makes sense. And also, like, I just thought about it this way too. Like, even as I was getting out of college, like, or university, like, I think, oh, well, okay, so this person got their degree, but there's a glass ceiling, or like, for instance, like, it can go either way. Like someone could have gone straight to work after high school, right? But apparently they didn't have that degree that maybe their occupation was looking for. And so either, you know, it's there or they go get that degree, whatever their prerogative is. And then on the flip side, that person has that degree and then I don't know, like like I always wondered, how do you go beyond that? What are the boundaries? How do you know that you achieve like the peak of your success or your career, you know? But yeah, like going back, to emphasize again, I do love V Smart's testimony. If you haven't checked that out, I highly recommend you do. I think it's called The Formula to Success. And I think she's developing her platform. So whenever she's ready, I guess she'll call me and let me know. And then if you guys want to check that out, you can. But yeah, I like her testimony because, that she just demonstrates how you can trust in God and that's your constant, thing, that relationship that you have with God that, you know, whereas in the world it's kind of like people are chasing what they think is what makes them successful or fulfilled without God. But then it might take one or two variations or maybe an event, right? And if you don't have faith, you don't have a relationship with God, and that can be very, very tricky, um, even dangerous. Hi, Celeste. Gabrielle says, belief is key. B Smart says, good MPs are cool, but I have found that most believers do not want to be holding on the rules of the NP set by the government. Interesting. Hi, Jayla. Okay. Gabrielle says, asset protection and scaling, they prioritize knowledge over material goods. And Jayla says, yes, I heard about those checks. Celeste says, I believe it. See where people mindset with it. I mean, I've seen headlines too, where people build successful businesses using their stimulus checks. Like, you know, I mean, I don't know where they are in their faith, but hey, God is a multiplier. You give that stimulus check to someone who has is backed by a multiplier. Hey, I think back in 2020, I think it was about roughly 2 to 3 grand, and now this whole um, DOGE dividend thing, it says about 5K. I mean, I've seen different numbers. I'm just gonna stick to the average, roughly 5K. Gabrielle says, "Lol, we're not really going outside." Good point. An entrepreneur is someone who takes um, risks that others are not willing to take on. They start what others are not willing to. Definitely. And I really do think that, that, what I call that near-death experience really was really what drove me to make that decision because you realize that a lot of the things that people think every day is important to them is not. When you get to that position where like from my experience when I thought I was slipping away, I was like, oh, these things don't matter. And then Celeste says, I did see them. My question is being getting the checks and the refunds back too? I don't know. Can you elaborate on that question, Celeste? I mean, I could be reading it, but maybe not interpreting the way you're typing it. But also, I don't really know more than, just Doge dividend checks being around like 5K each household, I heard. And then Gabrielle says, even if you don't have the liquid assets to start a business, there is funding out there. You just have to go for it. Yeah, yeah. Entrepreneurship is just like, look, after turning to the Lord, I have seen how like how do I explain this? When you're walking in your purpose or your assignment, at least for those of you who might not understand that, yeah, I recommend you watch my interview with Patience Dean to understand that a bit more. So it's kind of like as long as you're walking in that path that God has set out for you, right? Um, you're going to be successful. And I've literally seen how He provides everything that you need, like the things you need, right? So, hey, if you want to go Him ask for a bunch of things, you do that. That's between you and Him. I'm just telling you, okay? I'm catching up on these comments, so I want to know why you're laughing, Gabrielle. Oh wow, you know, when I started these live streams, I was just like, I don't know about this, but the more we're having them, the more, I'm enjoying them. I'm having fun talking with you guys. Yeah, so look, again, like I'm just referencing the videos I was able to watch today. So apparently, Mark Mitchell, I think it was a tweet or something. It was through Valuetainment again. Um, Apparently, 48% of Americans think the US is headed the right direction, and I'm curious what you guys think. I think, me personally, based off of the things that are being implemented, I think it is heading the right direction. Um, I do think that this amount of transparency is um, a good direction. It's just I'm also aware that, you know, that there are people who, like, I just hope that it's with good intentions and that the following administration or whoever else, you know, gets into that role later on in the future doesn't abuse it, you know, and that it's always going to be in our nation's best interests. Oh. Oh, Gabrielle says I'm laughing about when you said that culture is no longer my culture. It's true because I'm not claiming that. Not with that world star stuff out there. No, thank you. Jayla says I think we're going in the right direction, but it will be initially like ripping off a band-aid for a fresh start. Yeah, that's a really good way of saying that. I couldn't have said it any better. Yep, yep. It's just a lot of the things that it just doesn't make sense, you know? Where like I don't know much about where our money goes, but like or at least how do say this better? I don't know exactly where each and every single taxpayer dollar goes, right? Um, but I do think that it is good to at least have some level of transparency because where the money is being spent does not to me does not reflect the nation that we're meant to be, you know? I mean, I'd like to see America be become more of a producer type nation, not a nation that depends on, you know, overseas production or outsourcing. And I'm just saying, you know, my take on this. And I like to see a healthy nation, a nation where like a lot of the ingredients are natural and that we don't have to question where our food is coming from. We don't have to question how genetically modified it is. We don't have to eat things that are banned in other countries. I like to see a healthy nation. I'd like to see a nation that, you know, where people are living in old age, but they don't have to depend on, um, like, they don't have to depend on certain programs like that, you know, to be able to live. But yeah, Gabrielle says, not world star, it's just ghetto and cutthroat. I think I know a bit about that. And then Celeste says, you're my news anchor. I don't watch the news. That's interesting, you know, like I studied journalism a bit and then it was so interesting. I at some point I just didn't want to do it anymore, but I was so close to graduating and my college professor encouraged he's like, you know what, just go home, chill, eat some ice cream or something, graduate, and then you can do whatever was the gist of what I recall our conversation to be like. And so I did just that. And, you know, it's just the time that I was graduating from college was um like during I think it was during Trump's first um presidential term. Yeah, first presidential term. And I just remember like the direction the news was going. Like people just seemed like it just seemed off, you know, like how presidential election could like really affect someone's day like that, you know, on like a massive scale. And I just didn't like the direction I saw the news going. So it's really interesting you said that I'm your news anchor, Celeste. Um, God works in mysterious ways. I'm just gonna leave it at that. But yeah, I think, um, well, I think this will be a good time for us to wrap this up. But again, if you know of anyone you'd like for me to interview, then of course you can send them my direction. You know, you can comment, or you can, share that link in my About page on my YouTube. It's on all of the social media platforms I'm on. So I'm on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Threads. So you should be able to book a call and share the link with whoever you think would be a good fit for this platform. So I can, get to know other entrepreneurs and other, business people of faith and, you know, get to know them a bit and, maybe ask some questions here and there, maybe some spicy ones. And in addition to that, well, I I'm wondering if this time was good for you, like 9 or 9:30 EST, because I know I have viewers on the East Coast. So I do that because you guys are hours ahead. So let me know if that time, which one of those times works well, because I'm still seeing um, which time to, make it kind of like consistent. But I want to make sure like it's not just me and one person, not saying anything about that one person. You're amazing. I do think that these live streams are way better when we have more people. So, yes. Let me know what time works for you. And otherwise, I'll have to look into like my schedule. So, yeah, I had amazing, you know, this was a fun conversation. So, I guess we'll wrap it up for now, and I will see you next week. So, good night, everyone. Oh, and if there's a topic you'd like for me to discuss, you can comment that down below, and I'll get to it when I can. All right. Goodbye for reals.